Welcome into Emerald and Lilywhite, episode 34. Kind of a shitty time to be recording, but we're here regardless, right? We know people need to hear about Spurs. We need to talk about Spurs. After a pretty crushing defeat yesterday at Anfield, which we're going to get into, but before we do, you know him by now, we bring in my co-host Max at Going Limbs. Max, what's up, man?
Not much. Yeah, man. Just disappointed is the only adjective I would use to describe how I'm feeling about yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, not even about like not going through necessarily, but the manner in which we conducted ourselves was just embarrassing, to be honest. And yeah, it's really hard to take.
Yeah, it was a toothless performance. I was, really bummed with what I saw, to say the least. I think we'll start with the lineup. I know hindsight's always 2020, right? I personally am not a fan of throwing a new center back in to day two at the club into such a massive match. And I know we talked about Danzo. Before I get any further, I will say I think Danzo is fantastic, and I don't think he was like poor yesterday.
I think he was like probably top 3 player for us
I agree.
yesterday.
I
So
agree. I agree. I think he was good. I have some questions around the nature of that back line in such a massive match, a back line that's never played together in any way, shape, or form. Davies and Archie Gray as a center back pairing coming off a good defensive result against Brentford. And Brentford has good attacking players and looks to play football, right? So anyways, I didn't love the back line necessarily. As much of a liability as Pedro Porro is, we said in the prior episode that he may give you something going forward that you're going to need at some point to find that goal that you desperately require at Anfield. There's always the caveat that Pedro Porro probably leads to us conceding a goal, but we conceded 4, right? So
yeah.
I would have liked to have seen Pedro Porro. But anyways, before I get any further, I'll just ask you, man, what was your take on that lineup?
Yeah, personally, that's a back line that I wanted. So I was pretty happy with it, and if I were to do it again, I think I would stick with it. I think when you take a look at the goals that we conceded, the first goal was like a mistake, like Basuma just passes it right to the other team.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of like fumbled around, like not a great like clearance from, I think it was Bentancur, and then it just ends up at Gakpo. Gray couldn't get over in time. I don't think that was really anyone's fault in the back line. That was just like more of a midfield issue. Second goal, Kinski just didn't get there. He just didn't get there and conceded the penalty. The third goal, we give it away again in the midfield, and then they're just on the break, and it's Liverpool, and then the last goal is a corner. So for me, the issue was the midfield, the Basuma, Bentancur, Sarr midfield. You know what? At the beginning of the game, my initial reaction is, I mean, we went over this on the last pod. That's not what either of us wanted to see, but in the game like this, I didn't care too much about the midfield as long as they played hard and like won duels and were able to at least spring counterattacks in some form. And I thought Sarr was going to be able to do that. And Basuma played well against Liverpool, and Bentancur has been in good form. All three of them combined, one of the most disastrous midfield performances by a Tottenham trio that I've ever seen. Like, it genuinely, I don't know if they strung together more than 3 passes amongst themselves. They couldn't defend anything. They looked switched off. They were losing every 50-50 ball. They weren't doing anything on the counter. Anytime it would come to Sarr specifically, it was a sideways or a backwards pass. Like, you're the one that's supposed to be playing the wingers through or combining with the 9. It was atrocious, man. And then Basuma, he gives the ball away. It's completely his fault. He didn't look like the player that he looked before. but
Yeah.
he was the only one of them that was trying to do something going forward. But the thing is, he's not good enough to, so he kept fucking passing the ball to the other team.
Yeah.
Like, maybe if he had the technical ability to actually execute his ideas, then it would have worked, but it wasn't. It was not working because he's just not good enough to make those. It's not on. Like, his IQ was terrible. And then Bentancur, genuinely unfathomably bad in the
Yeah. He's
midfield.
awful.
He was so bad. Yeah, he literally no tackles. I don't think he made a single tackle. He looked like a lost puppy on the ball. Every single opportunity, attack, whatever, died with him. No passion. Like, at least show some passion. Nah, he looked dead out there. And it's like, for two of those guys, I think Sarr we give a little more leniency to. Like, he's still only 22. For the two other guys, like, this is the end. Like, that's it, man. Like, you're gone. Like, that's the end. That's how you're going out of Tottenham. They're gonna play some more games, but I guarantee you it's a Højbjerg situation for one of them for sure. I'm hoping both of them. That was tragic. Kulusevski, I thought he's just shattered, man. Like, he doesn't have the energy. And the front three, I mean, Sonny, similarly, Son got way too much flack post game for my liking. And I'm like usually the Son defender on this podcast, but just to highlight the final touches of the lineup, Richarlison, our best player, of course he fucking gets injured. He always gets injured. He was so good. He was the only one getting on the ball, looking to create. He was winning fouls. He was doing everything that you wanted from a striker in this type of game, breaking up the play, trying to just cause problems with the defense. He winding up Virgil van Dijk. I don't know if the game is any different if he stays healthy, but probably not. But like, it's just another injury for him, and that's another player who is not going to be wearing the shirt next year. And it's just depressing. Like, it was just a spineless performance by everyone involved. And as for the midfield, like Bergvall had to play for me, and I think that was the case for you too. Especially after what he did in the first leg, it's like, what, like, I just don't get it, man. It's just beyond me. So
the crazy part is Postecoglou went with 3 pseudo 8s. I still don't know what he considers Bentancur, right? But we know from post match comments in the first leg that he considered Bissouma an 8, considers Sarr an 8. But the 3 8s, quote unquote 8s that played in the first leg were,
the first leg was go ahead.
It was Bergvall, Kulusevski, and Bissouma, if I'm not mistaken, as the midfield.
That was
right?
it.
Vastly different midfield to Bentancur, Bissouma, and Sarr. Sarr sat at the top of the triangle for most of what I saw, right? Which I understand. You want him there to spring counters, I think was the idea, right? But I'm not sure he was super comfortable in that role. Bissouma, he did turn the ball over on that first goal, but also everyone around him booked forward. I understand we're looking to counter, but you still have to occupy and sit in the pockets, right? When just because we're looking to break doesn't mean that everybody just shits themselves and dead sprints forward every time.
And the only person coming to was Richarlison the entire time he was on.
But dude, like, even though Bissouma's turnover was poor, Sarr completely just left the space that he was occupying. And I think if he didn't, that ball would have been fine, right? But Sarr just took off as well. So I'm not trying to pick on Sarr, but I just don't think that we understood the assignment when it came to the way that we were looking to counter and break. And then Son and Kulusevski were both way too deep. Like, in my opinion, I understand that there's variations on the way that a team would set up to counter. But if I'm setting up my team that I would coach to counter, my 2 wingers need to stay high. Like, that's a non-negotiable for me, right? And I understand you do have to track back. Like, I'm not saying you never come back and you just sit up top the entire match, but every time we looked to break, there was really nobody to spring the break on except for Richarlison, right? And then he would be up top, at least in the first half, completely on an island with nowhere to go on the break other than to run into Van Dijk and Konate. Go ahead. Go ahead.
And I just think that, like, to build off that, I don't know what the instructions were, but it seemed like we had the wingers behind the ball when their wingers had it. Like Salah was double teamed, Son and Spence. How are we gonna counter when he's defending their winger?
Exactly.
I don't understand it from a tactical perspective. It didn't make any fucking sense to me. And
Yeah.
especially when Trent is not playing, dude.
Mhm.
Like, why do you need to drop that deep if Trent isn't playing? It's Connor Bradley.
Yep.
Like,
Yep. Yeah, we dropped the ball big time, and I don't know if it's Ange. I don't know if it's the players. It's probably a combination of the
for
two,
sure.
right? I don't think we were set up for success necessarily, but my biggest takeaway from that match was that everybody looked like they were just fucking shitting themselves every time they
Yeah,
were on the ball.
for sure.
Terrified, man. We were
Archie,
absolutely
bro, I've
terrified.
never seen Archie look like that.
Same, man. I don't want to pick on Archie Gray, but he did not look comfortable at the right
He
back
wasn't
position.
aggressive at all. It was
No,
just weird.
100%, man. And I mean, 18 years old at Anfield in a cup
Yeah.
semifinal, like I get
Yeah.
it. It's a lot. That's another reason why I would have, again, hindsight's always 2020, but I think he might have been a little bit more comfortable at center back. He's been playing there for 2 months, and I think not that you're not going to be under pressure at center back, you for sure are, quite often. But I
Yeah.
think the pressure is different, and I think he found himself in a few positions at the right back spot that he just hadn't had experience in the last couple of months, and I think it showed. There was one early in the match, like the 10th minute, where he tried to nutmeg. I don't even remember who it was, right? And it
I
was
remember
almost a
that.
super costly turnover.
Yeah.
Just something you can't do at Anfield in your own half, right? In that magnitude of a match. So, anyways, not to pick on Archie Gray. Archie Gray is fantastic, but even Archie had a tough one. I do think Spence looked fantastic. I think
He
Jet
was
Spence
so
was one
good.
of the other highlights. He was probably,
He was awesome.
yeah, from a Spurs perspective, the man of the match, you could say, right? But
I mean, yeah.
really, him and Richarlison, I agree with you, were the only two that were up for it yesterday. And then I do give Kulusevski a bit of a half pass because I think he just is dead on his feet, man. And
Yep. He's
yeah,
been dead for 2.5 weeks. Like, it's not.
100%.
And so
I,
is
I
Son, to be
yeah,
honest.
for sure, 100%, and we understand why. Yeah, and look, I knew in the back of my head that we were probably losing yesterday, right? Um,
We all did.
we
Yeah.
all did, but we also rightfully so believed and had hope that we could get through. I certainly didn't walk into yesterday saying it's fucking over, we're done, right? I had hope and had belief, but it doesn't look like the team did at all. And like you said at the beginning of the show, it's not so much that we didn't get through; it's just the absolute manner in which we flopped and fell flat on our face when the whole world was watching.
Yep.
Yes, just really disappointing. So
It's like there's only so many times that we can just rationalize Liverpool is better than us. Like,
mhm.
we know that. Like, we all fucking know that. But that does not mean that we play like that. That's just not how it works. Like, just because we know they're better doesn't mean we fucking roll over for them. And
Mhm.
just that doesn't mean we should be scared of them. And that doesn't mean that we shouldn't, like, at least have a chance in the game. Like, we didn't have a fucking chance, dude. We
Yeah,
didn't have a shot on target.
not a single
And
shot on target.
that's on the players, and that's also on the manager, because I don't give a fuck how many injuries we have. You should be able to coach one shot on target at Anfield. And I don't know what he said at halftime. We're tied on aggregate at halftime, and we go out there and concede 3 goals, dude.
Mhm.
And even after the Kinski penalty, we all know how demoralizing a solid penalty is in an important match.
Yeah,
But you got to go out, like, in that Champions League final, man. For as much as that shit hurt, like, we really
yeah,
tried to equalize, man. We had 70% of the possession. We were ripping shots. We almost scored a bunch of different times.
yeah,
We didn't have that at all. Even when we went down, they kept scoring on us. I don't understand.
yeah.
And the tactical And Ange, I'm not Ange out, but what the fuck is putting Spence at right wing? Like, why are you doing that? Porro comes on and he's taking off Basuma, and so it's Porro and Bergvall for Basuma and Sarr. Brilliant. Archie Gray's going to 6, and now we're gonna do some like Bentancur, Bergvall, Archie Gray midfield, and then Spence. No, it's actually Archie Gray to left back, Spence to right wing, and Porro to right back. What?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. You didn't even put the right fullback at right wing, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I would much rather have Porro there.
They do a Porro there, 100%.
It's like, what the fuck are you doing? And Spence at left back was, when he was inverting, was our most dangerous opportunity to actually create something from the middle-ish area of the pitch. And no, we're actually going to stick him at right wing where our best player gets one touch for the rest of the fucking game. I don't get that at all. And I understand that Ange has to do something. He has to make a change. We're down. We're chasing the game. It's just never the right change. He got it completely wrong. He got completely outcoached by Slot. And I honestly don't know. I don't know where we go from here, to be honest. And obviously we have this Villa game, and if we get past Villa, that could be absolutely massive for us to build some more momentum. And we also have the Europa League. But like we said on the last podcast, if our trophy percentage was at 25 yesterday, now it's at 10. So it's just going down by the day. And when a lot of people who are like, I don't want people to get confused. I'm not Ange out. A lot of people who are not critical of Ange whatsoever because of the club situation and the injury crisis, they're hanging their hat on that we still are in these cups. When we start getting out of the cups, and then the I don't care about the league people look at the league and we're fucking 15th and have no trophies, there's no possible situation where Ange is still the manager. And I don't know if that's the right decision. I don't know if I want that to happen, but honestly, you can't fault Levy for sacking a manager that ends 15th with no trophies. And I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it's getting more likely by the day. There's a higher percent chance that we finish bottom half with no trophies than we win a trophy.
Agreed.
And I'd say like it's the odds that we finish top half are also diminishing with each passing day. And it's just a big problem, man. And I know the injuries have played a part, but when you look at the players that we are playing, it's the senior players that we are expecting to step up that are letting us down consistently. And I want to know what you think about this, because I guess I'll pose the question: what do you make of the teenagers being the ones that seem to step up and have all the energy, and it's the players that have been here for 2 to 10 years that are just consistently letting us down? I just don't get it.
I'll tell you what I think it is. I think that we are a club that is more concerned with building a brand and a profit and loss sheet than winning. And without a doubt, no matter what people want to say, that percolates down into the squad. We are a complacent organization, and I've seen so many players who are on a great trajectory come to Spurs and become complacent. I frankly think Kane was maybe the only one who truly never showed complacency throughout the entire Pochettino run. I mean, we all know what happened with Dele, and don't get me wrong, I love Dele, and I understand that there's much more than complacency that goes behind those things, right? So I want to kind of set him off to the side, but I look at everybody else from that era. I look at Son. I look at Eriksson. I think there was always
fucking Eriksson
complacency, and I think that we're still seeing that today. So,
and you can see it when people move on from the club. Like if we're seeing it with Romero now, that's damn similar to how fucking Christian Eriksen did us too.
Yeah,
just like, oh, I'm injured. Oh, I don't give a fuck. I'm leaving.
Yeah,
I'm still gonna play in some games, but I don't really care at all. And who cares if we win or lose? And I don't know I don't know if that's happened to Bissouma, Bentancur. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but it's not okay. Yeah, it's just fucking ridiculous.
Yeah. I think that we can talk about Romero for a second. There's grumblings that he doesn't want to be at Spurs anymore. I think a lot of that is just people kind of trying to make something out of nothing, right? Or reading between the lines at best. But we haven't heard anything. You and I were talking about this before the show. Haven't heard a single thing about his injury, about the timeline. I haven't seen him on the sideline once. My understanding that he's been in Argentina rehabbing. The only thing we've heard from him is that interview he came out with from an Argentine journalist, right? Argentinian journalist that where he backed Ange essentially and said, right, if they move on from Ange, then I would move on as well. So I certainly appreciate that. But at the same time, I'm just going to call it what it is. If I'm Romero or Van de Ven and I've watched this club just crumble to dust throughout my injury spell, I don't really have any interest in coming back to play for Spurs next season. I would certainly be looking at my career as, my stock being very high. And who knows what happens when I come back from these injuries, especially in Van de Ven's case, right? Who knows what happens with his hamstrings? If someone shows interest in me and I'm either one of them this summer, I'm considering it.
And if I'm Spurs, I don't know this Van de Ven thing, like, it's a slippery slope, dude. I don't know how high his value is going to be in a year when he has 2 more hamstring injuries. Like, right now we could sell him for $100 million.
Yeah.
Like, genuinely.
Yep.
I don't want to be the Daniel Levy, like, selling our best player, but there is genuine concern. It's not like he's been a consistent staple in the squad at all. I bet he's missed more time than he's played for us. And just to build off the injury thing, it's like, this is the semifinal. We have a 1-0 lead on aggregate. Are all 11 of you really that fucking hurt, like, that you can't play in the game? Like, I don't want to be that guy that's like, you guys are hurt but still play and get re-injured. But if you're going to rush people back for a game, rush them back for this game, not Chelsea when we're 12th in the league, dude. Like, is Madison's knock and Brennan Johnson's thigh really that fucking injured? This is the biggest game in 4 years. Like, it just seems like there's no passion. Like, where is the passion? The most passion I saw was Tell winning a corner and trying to fire up the crowd. And we all know that he's not going to fucking be here in 6 months anyway. And
I don't know why it would be.
It's just ridiculous, man. And I don't know if it's our medical staff. Like, it's obviously harsh for me to harp on these guys who could damn well be, like, seriously injured. But it's also hard for me to believe that every single player is just unable to even put in, like, a 20-minute shift to help the team. Like I was reading Twitter, and I forget which ex-player it was, but he was like, yeah, when we won the League Cup in like 2001 or something, I played the semifinal with a broken ankle and like did everything I could to see that game through. Where is that? I couldn't fucking like, Dragisin trying to play on his torn ACL is the only possible scenario where that's happening with our soft ass players. And like, honestly, shout out Richarlison. He probably hasn't been healthy for 2 years at this point, but he keeps giving it a go. Like, it's not really that helpful because he just gets hurt after 45 minutes, but it's just the lack of passion is just disgusting. Jed Spence Instagram story. I want to read this to you. I don't know if you are. I don't think you're on Instagram that much, and I know you're off Twitter now. So needed more fight, much more. That's his Instagram story to Sunday. And he's the only fucking player besides Danso that was showing any type of heart out there.
I agree. I mean, it's interesting, man. When I look at big picture, Actually, before I do, I want to go back to something I said earlier, and I just want to stamp this on the record that when we were talking about complacency, I want people to know that Dele's the man, and mental health and addiction are serious things that need to be addressed and nurtured. I'm not nurtured, but we have to put our arms around these people. And I don't want anyone to think that I'm like knocking Dele for complacency, right? But anyways, let's talk big picture. Ange in out. I don't want to get into any of that, right? But if I'm looking forward and we're talking about Romero, we're talking about Van de Ven, let's say hypothetically, and again, we're still in the FA Cup, we're still in the Europa League, so we don't want anyone else out there to think that we're panicking either right now. But hypothetically, we don't win any trophies, we finish bottom half. I personally am of the belief that at that point, you sell any asset you can that can further along the project, right, that we're clearly building. And what I mean by the project is Archie Gray, Jed Spence, Lucas Bergvall, Mikey Moore, Will Langsher, Pop Sar, these types of guys who are the true future of this club. And I'm talking 4 or 5 years from now, we have a base that can really compete. Luka Vuskovic, the 3 signings we just brought in, to our youth squad. We're really invested.
And we added another, Mason Melia, Irish striker.
And people are pretty hyped about this kid, it looks like. So
he looks dirty.
Yeah, where's he at now? Bristol City?
He's at St. Patrick.
Oh,
some team in Ireland.
Scotland? Oh, Ireland. Interesting.
Yeah, he's Irish. Troy Perry 2.0.
Got it. Let's go. But yeah, I mean, I think we're at the point now where we're building a squad that could really do something special in like 4-ish years, right? And so part of me thinks that if you can get 150 million for Van de Ven and Romero, you do it, and you buy 4 or 5 absolute teenage sensations, right? And you just keep building this squad that could turn into something special. I don't know. Do you think that's crazy, or is there anything to that?
No, I think that's a great plan, man. Yeah. I think that's wonderful. And yeah, I kind of wanted to discuss this a little bit. I know you're on a time crunch, so I'm going to go quickly. I'm just going to list off players. You tell me what you want to do with them this summer, because like that's the stage we're at. Yeah. Like we're at Europa League. Like we have what we have. We know what we have. We know what we have to do. There's not much analysis that we can do at this point that's going to help us like break down how we can win the Europa League. Like this is the squad we have. These are the injuries we have. We know the style we have to play to win. It's about the project. I think we're all about the project, and whether that continues with Ange or not, we shall see. But we have a bunch of players that probably shouldn't be included in the project. And Sonny,
I keep Sonny, but I make sure that he understands that he's playing a bit part role and will not be a regular starter. But I'd love to have Sonny around off the bench.
Yep, I agree. He's got to understand that. And I think when we manage his minutes, he is our number one goal contributor this season. As bad as this season's been, he's still been the player that's been available for selection and contributing 2 goals. Davies, do we extend him? His contract's expiring.
Unfortunately, I probably don't. As much as I would love to have him around for his versatility and his leadership and his acumen, and I'd love to see him retire at Spurs, I just think he maybe gets in the way of some of the kids that we're eventually trying to develop. So unfortunately, I'd move Davies on.
Yeah, if Vuskovic comes in and is like a legitimate, what would be like a 4th center back, assuming Romero and Van de Ven play, then I'm cool with Davies sticking around because he can cover multiple positions, and then Dragisin's also going to be out. But if they want to move for a left footer, which I think they should, and that's the expense of Davies, 100% be cool with him moving on. He's been a good servant for the club. Werner, Reguilon have to go. Yeah. James Madison. I'm going in order of age right now.
Yeah.
For those listening.
You know, I'd probably move him on. And the only reason I say that is because I don't think he's going to get the minutes that he wants. And I think you can still get a decent amount of money for him at this point. So I would, again, it's very easy for me to say this, but I would look at what I could get for him towards reinvesting. And then you lean on Bergvall.
Yeah, that's fair. For me, I think I value Madison a lot because he just seems like he's like actually a footballer. Like I don't know how like I don't know. I hope you know what I mean. But
100%.
because like sometimes with Kulusevski, I just think like he's not complete. Like I feel like Madison is more complete, like as a number 10. And I don't know if Bergvall is the plan, then that's a completely different topic. But for me, I guess in this Ange system, Kulusevski's better because of the work rate. But if we're talking the number 10 position, it's Madison all day for one reason, and that's like ball striking ability. Kulu, he literally, I think he's one of the worst ball strikers in the Prem, to be honest.
I agree.
He is so bad at kicking the ball correctly that it's almost like strange. Like it's like he cut in on his left foot in the Liverpool game to go for a finesse shot. You already know it's in row Z. It's like he can't like I just don't get it. It's like he's the only left footer ever to like be this bad at shooting. And he's so good at creating and those little passes and combining that it makes up for it. But it's just that end product. I think Madison is so clinical, and that's really helped us a lot. Like when he's in those positions.
Yeah, it's interesting with Madison. Like if you said there will be someone else managing Spurs next season, what do you do with James Madison? He has to be here and is one of the most crucial, vital pieces for me. So for me, I think when I say move him on, it's more of an Ange thing. It seems like there's maybe something going on there. We also don't really use like a true 10. And like if we're playing a true 4-2-3-1 like we did under Pochettino, James Madison is fucking gonna thrive. 1,000%. And we actually wanted him for that when Pochettino was at the club, and it didn't quite work out, right? But anyway, so I got to put an asterisk next to Madison because there's a few variations on how I would answer that.
Yeah, and I think that that's a shame because people always talk about like the players aren't good enough for Tottenham and they aren't the level. He is a player that is the level. So in my opinion, you got to do everything you can to like make him fit. Just do something because he is so good.
Yeah.
And then I can go quicker. I assume Bentancur, Basuma, both. See ya. Yep. Richarlison.
See ya.
Danso, we just signed Romero Van de Ven. We talked about if the right offer comes. I think we're both on the same page.
Yep.
Porro.
I keep him. And I think him and Spence offer a really nice 1-2 punch at right back for tactical reasons. I think they offer you something different, but are both talented.
Yeah, and then Kulu, I think we both say keep.
Yeah.
He's only 24, which is wild. Same age as Jed Spence.
Yeah.
Spence, you got to keep. He's been our best player.
Build a squad around that guy right now.
Yeah, he's fucking unbelievable. Brennan Johnson.
I keep.
I know you keep.
Yeah.
To be honest, if we're talking about like we bring in other players like Kubo or Bakayoko, I'm totally, if it takes selling Brennan, like I'm all for that.
For sure. Yeah.
He's just not good enough, in my opinion.
If his sale is required to bring in a couple of key pieces up top, that's one thing. But when I look at Brennan, I think that like if I have 9 subs and I'm looking at what I want to do, and this is of course in a perfect world when everyone's healthy, right? There's always kind of that one position for me, that 9th sub that you have a lot of flexibility with, right? I keep a left back, I keep a right back, I keep 1 center back, I keep 2 midfielders, probably a striker, and 2 complements to that striker up top, and that leaves you with 1 extra player if my math is correct. And I think Brennan Johnson can be that like ninth sub that you have at your disposal for certain reasons, but I don't think Johnson can start next season. I think if Brennan Johnson is our starting right wing, then we failed in the transfer market for sure. So
I think our starting wingers are next, like opening day next year. It's got to be more in Odebear, at least from where I'm sitting right
I would
now.
agree, unless we bring
Unless
in
we
anybody.
make a big right wing signing.
Exactly.
I think Moore is he's got to be our left wing next year, first choice.
Yep.
No
Agreed.
reason not to.
Yep.
And then Dragusin is like the other interesting one. I think everyone else is too young to kind of decide. Sar and Udogi are 22. I mean, Dragusin's only 23, but he's the same age as Brennan. So I think he'll be our last one here. So what do you think? Like, he's out until December.
Yeah, I'd keep him around.
He's going to be impossible to move anyway this summer.
100%. That's a big piece of it. But I also just think that in those matches where you need to defend in the box for 70% of the time, he's a wonderful piece to have around. I think he's very talented in a defensive shape for sure. So, I'd keep him around. And
then, yeah, so that's all I got for that. I know you got to go in like 2 minutes. So the last thing I want to get your take on, Harry Kane, 54 mil buyout clause for next January. Are you in?
Fuck yeah, of course. He would be very good in an AIM system. He
would be dude. Yesterday, like I just think about like that game against Manchester City. It's like unreal.
Yeah, honestly, Kane is, if Kane can get a couple of trophies this season, even if they can win the Bundesliga, I think that you could persuade him to come back to Tottenham. But
I think Champions League, he would come back if they win the Champions League.
Win the Champions League, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Let's all hope that they do. We're not in it, right? But yeah, Kane's that one guy who, like I said earlier, or one of the few guys that I think really, really always showed that they were up for it. I mean, the dude plays through injuries. That's something we're not seeing a ton of now. I'd love to have Kane back. And yeah, like Max said, we're going to have to keep this one short tonight. And we didn't have much of an agenda. We really just wanted to hop on and kind of spitball and freestyle an episode today because we're both
Aston Villa prediction.
I think 2-2 at the end of regulation, and I'll say we win on pens. Give us some hope.
3-1 Villa. Give me a Rashford debut brace. Yeah. Spurs lose.
Yeah. I mean, I won't be surprised if that happens. And then the only other thing I'll say before we wrap this pod up, and maybe I can stoke a fire quick and let it cascade out to the mountain to the masses. But I'm starting to see some cracks in the Ange Postecoglou project. I really am personally. I'm not saying I want Ange out, but I also don't think that you can put all of this on injuries. I think that there's ways we could have gotten through this low point. I think the couple of times I've seen us make tactical adjustments based on the typical Ange model, it's been okay. Yesterday was an absolute disaster. And I also don't love how much we hear about the injuries in the press. Like, we understand.
I fucking hate it. And
it comes off as an excuse.
And the Leyton Orient guy, everyone was bashing him, dude. Yeah. He's got a point, man. It's not a good look because we're giving him his best players and he's a fellow manager. But if it was a pundit saying that, which they do.
Yeah, exactly. It was really poor taste from him, but like, I don't think that, like, there's a reason he said that.
It's not ridiculous to say that.
Yeah, exactly. 100%, man, because he'll say things like,
he said it again after the match.
Exactly. And then he'll blame the injuries and then the same breath say it's on me. That those two things can't be true at the same time for me. And so I
Unless
think
you're just taking a knife to Manavent's hamstring.
exactly, dude.
He's like there. He just hates Levy so much. He's just sabotaging us.
Yeah, and maybe so. I mean, I don't think I would be a huge fan of Levy if I was the manager of Spurs either. But yeah. So, anyways, I think I'm not Anjao, but I just want to close the pod by saying I think it's okay to be asking questions, right? Is all I want to say. And I'm not a Levy apologist. I think Levy does not give a shit about winning football matches. And I think that affects our managers. But I also do think that Ange needs to improve. Or I may get to a point where I think it may be worth it at the end of the season to bring someone else in to shepherd this project forward, because we have so much young talent and we got to get it right. But yeah, so sorry to wrap it up there. I got to jump, man. We'll certainly talk big picture more. Everyone listening, we appreciate your time. You can find me at Scott G. Bird. You can find Max at Going Limbs. You can find us at and Lilywhite on all platforms. You can find Seattle Spurs. We are the official YouTube channel of Seattle Spurs, at Seattle Spurs, at all social media platforms. Make sure you sign up for the email list. It's seattlespurs@gmail.com. Shoot us a note. Let us know you want to be on the list. You're going to be put on the list, and you're going to get match day viewings, all kinds of Tottenham content, Seattle Spurs content, holiday parties, you name it. Get out to the Wits End. Get out to Cascades. Get out to Rainier Growlers. Tip your bartender as well. And as always, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.